So it's December, it's the end of the year, and it's the end of 2012. But why do people think the world is gonna end December 21st, 2012? Of course, there's the Mayan calendar, but there's more conspiracy theories out there on how the world is gonna end. Planetary alignment, a polar shift, solar flares, zombie apocalypse, total blackout, a meteor impact, big dwarf planets hurling through space to strike the Earth, causing our complete and utter destruction. First, let's talk about the Mayan calendar and settle this once and for all. The Mayans were an ancient civilization that was far more advanced than the rest of the world. While the rest of Europe was in the Dark Ages, the Mayans were living it up. They were way into numbers, constellations, and keeping track of their days via a calendar. Sure, it wasn't a simple 12-month calendar like we use today. More like over a 5,000 year calendar, and it's a little excessive, I'll give you that. But that doesn't mean that when their calendar ends, the world ends. Hey, if you had to etch in stone your whole life or draw meticulous designs on paper, you might think that doing a good 5,000 years is a good start to your calendar too. It saves you carpal tunnel. The Mayan calendar ends December 21st, 2012. Hence the apocalyptic conspiracy theory that if the calendar ends, then surely that must mean the world will end as well. Or maybe it's just time to get a new calendar. There's no reason to believe that the Mayans themselves thought the world was going to actually end December 21st, 2012 at the end of their calendar. It's just like us. Our calendar, a modern day calendar, ends December 31st of whatever year you're on, and you get a new one starting January 1st. For us, it's going to be January 1st, 2013. So there's no reason to believe they wouldn't function in the same way that we do today. Just because a calendar ends, that is not enough evidence to say that's going to be the end of the world. Now let's talk planetary alignment. Now this theory of the world ending has to do with all the planets lining up, and somehow the gravitational pull of all the planets combines, causing polar shifts and tidal waves and floodings and earthquakes here on Earth. A major planetary alignment is not written in the stars for us in 2012, which means this theory is debunked right away. And keep in mind, planetary alignments have occurred in our past, most recently in 2000. A major alignment occurred in 1982 and another one in 1962, and guess what? The world did not end. And there's just no evidence showing that the world is in apocalyptic danger, even if the planets did align in 2012. The polar shift theory, that's one that I like. The polar shift theory basically means that the North and South Pole would swap out, and if you had a compass in your hand after this happened and you were looking at magnetic north, you would be facing the South Pole. That is so cool! The Earth's magnetic field has flipped its polarity before, so this theory is not that far off the mark. But hold up, because while scientists agree polar shifts happened, it's not exactly the end of the world. Even if there is a polar shift, it doesn't mean that the Earth is going to rotate in the opposite direction. A reversal of the Earth's rotation, according to NASA, is impossible. Even so, polar shifts do happen, and they occur every 200,000 to 300,000 years. And the Earth is due for one, because the last polar shift that occurred happened over 780,000 years ago. So we're due for a polar shift. But we could look at the fossil record and see there was no dramatic effect on animal or plant life. We could look at deep ocean sediment cores and see that there was no negative adverse effect on glacial activity either. The Earth's polarity is not constant, and even though we're due for a polar shift, it doesn't signal the end of the world. Polar shifts have happened seamlessly before with no adverse effects on animal and plant life here on Earth. So let's move on to solar flares. The solar flare theory has to do with solar storms on the sun's surface that adversely affect the Earth and thus burning us into a charred piece of toast and ending all life as we know it. I say this is a pretty decent theory because there's some truth behind this, but does that actually mean it's going to signal the end of the world? The sun is an active star, and the sun's solar storms go in cycles. We know every 11 years it reaches its peak, but the Earth has a very thick atmosphere to protect us. At the end of 2013 or the beginning of 2014, not in 2012, is when the sun will have ramped up its solar flares to a maximum giant electromagnetic burst. But could the solar flare destroy us and kill us all? Anyone living over 11 years of age has already experienced the sun at its worst, and history shows us that even the most powerful solar flares are not powerful enough to destroy the Earth. So moving on to total blackout. Total blackout is a theory based on a lot of what ifs. What if the Earth is hit with a solar flare and it causes everything to short out? What if there's a polar shift or a planetary alignment and it thus catapults us into the literal dark ages? You should always be prepared for emergencies, and we're kind of here in the US, we're always prepared for a blackout because on the East Coast there are hurricanes, the Midwest deals with tornadoes and severe weather, and so same with the West Coast has earthquakes. So we're kind of used to having blackouts. My point is that even if we do blackout, how is this the end of the world? Sure, it would suck. We'd all be off the grid. We wouldn't have electricity, and we are so dependent on electricity. But that doesn't mean we're gonna die instantly, and I have a little more faith in humanity to know that we spent most of our time on Earth without electricity. I'm pretty sure we can handle it. And I'm talking about the end of the world here. I'm talking about complete annihilation, not an inconvenience. But what about dwarf planets? planets, hurling themselves through space, crashing into Earth, and killing us all. This one is awesome. I kind of wish it were true, but not really because I don't want to die. But if it were true, we would all die in an instant. But listen, if this were true, we'd all be able to go out at night and look up at the sky and see a really, really, really bright planet coming our way. This is a hoax because if this were real, astronomers would have been following these planets for the last decade or so at least. There is a dwarf planet similar to Pluto that we've known about that's in our outer solar system. NASA says the closest that will come to Earth is 4 billion miles, so we're safe. Now let's talk about a meteor impact in 2012. We've been hit by asteroids, comets, and probably alien garbage since the Earth came into existence. So a meteor impact is rare, but not impossible. You should sleep peacefully at night knowing that NASA is watching our skies. NASA astronomers carry out a Space Guard survey, which is kind of like a land survey, only out in space. They watch the skies to see if there's any objects that are dangerously close to the Earth. And don't forget, 65 million years ago, there was an impact. It killed off the dinosaurs, and that's why NASA is watching the skies. NASA's Near-Earth Object Program has a website where you can see daily updates of what's near the Earth, and you'll be happy to know there's nothing predicted to impact us in 2012. And that's it. And listen, I know I dumbed this down a little bit to keep it concise and simple, and if you are an end-of-the-world conspiracy theorist and want to add something, then go ahead and leave us a comment below and let us all know about it. Either way, I hope you learned something and you gained a little peace of mind that the world is not ending December 21st, 2012, or in 2012, or anytime soon. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Watch my other videos if you're really, really, really bored, and give me a thumbs up. Just enjoy your life more. That's it. Have a spiritual awakening. I don't know. If anything, I personally believe that the most likely thing that would happen would be a zombie apocalypse, and maybe not a zombie per se, but definitely some kind of illness or pandemic that sweeps through and annihilates the human race. I think that is more likely to happen than any of the other ones so far. But either way, you know, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be living life, and I'm glad to be making this video for you. So yeah! Anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of the year, and a great new year as well. Get your New Year's resolutions ready because you're going to be needing them, and you better stick to them this year because it's 2013. It's like the start of a whole new world.